Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we welcome some special guests from Origin Trail, one of the favourite projects that you guys have been requesting. So we welcome the co-founders Tomas and Ziga. How you going, guys?
Hey, Alex.
So supply chains and logistics has been one of the best exciting use cases for blockchain. So tell us a bit of the background about how you guys got into this space.
Sure. So basically, our background starts with myself, Giga, and Branimir, who's the third co-founder, working on a project back in 2011, which really was focused around the supply chain transparency space from the angle of the provenance of ingredients in final food products. And that was kind of the first steps we were doing in the supply chain and track and trace space. Kind of going forward, tackling larger and more complex systems, figuring out more about the fragmented landscape of the supply chains, especially in the global context, and getting a lot of questions around data integrity. That's kind of what pulled us towards the blockchain space in the first place. So we were looking for those value propositions of integrity, of immutability, learning more about decentralization and how that could be used to cross these different walled gardens that exist today is what kind of was the foundational piece of the Origin Trail as a protocol. So it's a couple of different features that were missing at the time in order to enable such use cases to exist, and this is basically where the idea of Origin Trail protocol was kicked off. And that was around early 2017, which is also marks kind of the beginning of Origin Trail as an ecosystem. That's what lives around the protocol.
Yeah, and I think the public perception is that technology hasn't really infiltrated the ag industry as much as it has a lot of other industries. So how has that been when you tell people what your software can do, or maybe even blockchain, what that can allow you guys to do now?
Yeah, I mean, the ag and food sector is very interesting. At some points, we do see a little lag in the technology adoption, especially in more remote locations. On the other hand, we do have the need and some very novel practices coming about. So it's like it really depends on who you get to talk to. But generally, the understanding of the value of the transparency is very evident. So the pain points are very strong, and that's why the kind of the fit for such technology is good. We've been it also comes from two different sides, let's say like that. One is more bottom up, where we see particular organizations that have a very high level of understanding that this is something that they have to get educated about, and they want to start trialing and they want to learn about it by doing it. So that's one way to go about it. And then the second one is more top down, where we are, for example, a part of two respective European projects, which each is funded by 20 million from European Commission. And those projects have the aim of, let's say, smart agri-hubs to reach up to 2 million European farmers, which is a huge number. So that's like 20%, and get them closer to the new technologies and digitalize what's going on. So like there's different approaches, there's different levels of recognition of the importance of the technology, and we're looking to support kind of both of those tracks.
So for people that aren't convinced that this is a good application of blockchain technology, what would you say are the biggest selling points of the increases in efficiency for everyone from the farmer to the logistics to the end user?
Yeah, so the reason is quality of the data. If data is not quality enough, then you may use any fancy system and you will not reap any benefits out of it. So our approach is slightly different than that of other companies. When we're approaching users, we don't have this blockchain first approach. So what we try to do is look into problems they have, because problem identified is problem solved. And then see what thing is missing. And that's why, in addition to Origin Trail protocol, we've been designing also methodologies. We've designed our own blockchain canvas. It's an open source canvas. I'm not sure if it's on GitHub, but if it's not, it's definitely going to go there. So we work closely with users and then trying to identify a problem, and then from there on, we are looking into Origin Trail protocol and how it can cater to their needs. And Origin Trail protocol, by definition, while it is being kind of powered by blockchain capabilities, it still has certain components to it that are not too native in crypto space. And one of the components is the data logic. So we use global standards so that we can formulate data sets so that they can be cross-referenced in a supply chain. And what's also important, we've gone further than other companies in terms of using a different database structure. And blockchain by definition, it's not a database, so you cannot do many things when you just record, fingerprints of data files on blockchain. And that's why Origin Trail protocol also features graph database. And graphs are extremely powerful when it comes to querying data which is interconnected. And data in supply chains and agriculture is connected, because you have a product, and this product is linked to many other data, such as weather conditions, what has been happening with a certain product or ingredient in the past, who are the sources, etc. So what we are now seeing is that this technology is not only useful in agtech and supply chains in general, it can also be used in other supply chains, and even in some other industries that are not, by definition, kind of structured as supply chains, but they can still use the technology.
Yeah.
So the inefficiencies are oftentimes stemming from poor quality of the data. And one of the advantages of Origin Trail protocol is that it pushes all the participants to structure data according to standards, so that we have this semantic interoperability. And once we have that, we can build different use cases, increasing efficiencies, even offering new business model to its users, etc.
Yeah, I really like those standards that you guys have focused on, enabling businesses to speak the same language as it says in your white paper and whatnot. So data integrity is so important, as you say, and a lot of projects are trying to solve this problem with oracles and all sorts of things. So what's been your approach to ensuring that the data that's coming in from the farmer is verifiable and accurate?
Yeah, so Giga mentioned this is one of the key points really of it. So when we were starting to look, the first problem was really of the space is transactions aren't enough to describe what goes on in the supply chain. So you need a larger data set. Then you need to be able to ensure data quality, which was the second one. And data quality usually has two problems. One, it's either it's poorly structured, so that the data itself is corrupted, is bad, or it has bad character, so that someone wants to do bad stuff. So we've started with addressing the first part of the problem with the protocol itself. So by having these data structures and data standards in place that are relying on and below having this graph logic, which can even connect different data standards amongst each other, that's really powerful. And it ensures that whatever comes in is compatible with what already is there. And like AI, they would spend 80% of the time just cleaning up the data. And so with something like that, you have things that are readily available to be used in actionable context. And then you have the bad character, right? And the bad character, it pays off if it's unlikely you'll get caught and if the punishments aren't really high. So the punishment side, that's not our focus, but the likelihood of getting caught or the bad practice being discovered is something that you can do. Again, cross-referencing, it requires it's like a prisoner's dilemma. You need to have an entire network to collude on certain things, which is much more unlikely than having one particular actor to make a bad thing on their own. And even though if they do collude and do something, having these immutable characteristics to it, it means that whenever it will get figured out, it will be very easy to point the finger as where the mistake has occurred or who made the wrongful claim. So by kind of having this data structured correctly, having the cross-referencing done, that we have to all agree on what actually happened in order for that to be validated, and then have that immutability aspect to it through decentralization, that just it becomes less and less and less and less likely that someone would be close to a system like that wants to actually do something wrong.
Fantastic. Now, I noticed you guys are building on Ethereum at the moment, and people are starting to become familiar that you can build protocols on protocols like 0x is on top of Ethereum, and you can use that to trade tokens and whatnot. So at the moment, you said that you want to be blockchain agnostic in the future, but do you want to talk about the network layer and the data layer and then the application with maybe some real world examples for people to understand?
Yeah, sure. So our approach really was from the agnosticism, why we see it so important, because supply chains require that neutrality. If you're creating another vendor lock-in or any type of lock-in, technology lock-in, you'll create another walled garden. So that's why the open source aspect was so attractive to us, right? And Origin Trail as a protocol is set up like that it needs to be able to integrate different or to connect to different blockchain ecosystems. And currently, we already are able to bridge different ecosystems of blockchains. So we've done Ethereum, obviously, and also have trials done with or implementations done with the Hyperledger fabric, which is even in a permission setting, right? But when we're talking about how Origin Trail kind of uses the blockchain from the network aspect, is that we have the blockchain fairly lightweight use, so only for what blockchain is really good, and this is for transactions, obviously, and for running smart contracts, and for the kind of being the utmost security level for protecting the fingerprint that's being put on the blockchain. Yeah. And this is basically the levels of how far we go to use it. The Origin Trail decentralized network obviously sits on top of Ethereum, like you mentioned. Our smart contracts runs there. Our token is Trace is running on Ethereum. But then the fingerprinting can be done already depending on your liking. So you can decide which level of trust or integrity you would want to put on for the data that you're putting on the network by selecting different even blockchain environments for it. So yeah, that's the general approach. We're looking constantly what's going on. We don't have a big pressure in terms of scalability because we are the scalability solution for the data. So our use of even Ethereum is lightweight enough for us to be able to support large-scale stuff at this point already. So in that also gives us a little bit of more time to look at what comes next, how the developments are going, which of the ecosystems really comes out to be the strongest, and then always kind of be able to complement and work with what's out there.
So do you guys want to be developing a range of applications in-house, or the open source nature, ideally you want other people developing those applications on top of your protocol?
Yeah. In the past, we did our own applications because this venture was created in 2013 already. And it was then when we created the first app that was called Origin Trail, and it was a proprietary solution. And after we started building the protocol, which is obviously an open source, we also put certain applications that we built in the past into the open source domain, and we are looking to do the same in the future when it comes to at least the applications that we see could be used for kind of a general purpose and for let's say public good. In certain cases, when we are doing co-development with other companies, so not only Origin Trail, but perhaps some other company that wishes to build its own application on top of Origin Trail, in that case, it might be a collusion of interest, and it should be kept closed source to a certain extent. But the protocol itself and certain general purpose apps will always remain open source.
So
we're also trying to actively promote the developers to join in the ecosystem, and anyone integrating, like we have integration with companies that are not directly maybe even working with us, but they're using the tech already, and that's something we want to foster further.
Fantastic. What would you say to the people who are big fans of private blockchains and Hyperledger and what's the importance of that trace token, and why did you choose the other model?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very valid question, and it's something that needs to kind of be perceived through the lens of the use case as well. So sometimes it might be permissioned, might be, or consortium chains might be good enough for certain use cases. But depends on the integrity layer, right? If we have, like the three of us have some sort of consortium chain, the fact that we're running a blockchain between the three of us, for someone outside of this, for them it's centralized system, because we still control everything, so we can amend anything we want, right? Yeah. And here, when we're edging the use cases where those claims need to have integrity towards a wider audience, here it becomes more and more apparent or very straightforward that a more public ecosystems are required to deliver that level of integrity. So it's in our eyes. And also the way we explain it, it's through that lens, so that in the companies or the individuals or organizations that we're discussing with are understanding it in the same manner as well. So when there is and a lot of the use cases fall in that when you require that utmost level of integrity, obviously you would go to the public. But if I exchange with Giga about our transaction, something that only the two of us are interested in or should be interested in, we don't potentially we don't need the public the domain of integrity. We might just want to do something that's connected between the two of us. But having that flexibility of moving between the two is something that people can or organizations can achieve using Origin Trail as well.
And can you talk about the trace token a little bit more? And I've read about Vostek, and staking always gets people pretty excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vostok has been a very important milestone for us. So that's been something we've been working towards for a long time, and it gave Trace the utility that for which it was created. So it's a Trace. Just a quick recap: is a utility token that's used within the Origin Trail protocol. Bless you. Always be blessed. No more. Okay. So the trace is used for compensations between the users of the protocol and the nodes in the protocol. So it manages that relation because the network itself is decentralized. Yeah. And it lives on Ethereum. It's an ERC20, and obviously these compensations are done through the smart contract. When it comes to Vostok, it's been the first time that we've went from testnet, which was using the test tokens, towards using the real utility of the tokens. And why staking is important here, it's kind of twofold. One is the initial staking that any node does is intended to kind of be like a buy-in in the network. It's staked there. As if you shut down your node, obviously you're able to take those tokens back. But it's like like the chip in you to be a part of the network, and it gives it reduces the unwanted entries, let's say like that would just want to spam the network by creating infinite amount of nodes. Then the second part, which is important, is staking, and which is described more in our token mechanics or token economics, is the part when it's connected to the jobs. So jobs is when I want to publish something on the network, like a data set, that would be considered a job. And if my data set, let's say I'm offering it for 1,000 trace, then there should be a stake for on the other side of whoever's holding that data set, in order to ensure that the holder will store the data with integrity. They won't change it, they won't meddle with it. And the litigation mechanism, which is the part of the freedom release, which is coming to the mainnet later, but it has been released on testnet. So this is in effect it has been finished. The litigation mechanism allows you to then if you figure out that someone is actually having corrupted data, be able to exclude that type of node that would be a bad actor out of the holding structure, and then that stake would be lost, and the node gets then exchanged with the new one.
Sure thing.
And all is done through a smart contract. So everything.
So how's the interest been from industry, and have you guys got any big partnerships you can tell us about, and who are you trying to work with?
Yeah. So most recently, the important thing is that we got into collaboration with Oracle. We also developed a network operating system which allows us to interoperate between Origin Trail and different existing legacy systems, so ERP systems and other applications already in existence in the enterprise world. It also gives us an opportunity to interoperate with Hyperledger Fabric, and for that purpose, we started collaboration with Oracle, which is also offering their own blockchain as a service solution. And as a result of that, we also got listed on their marketplace, and due to that listing, we also are receiving quite a lot of interest from very interesting companies, big and small companies. Then after that, we got into partnership with a British Standard Institution. They are one of the kind of oldest companies when it comes to standardization, and they're also one of the companies that actually came up with the ISO 9002 standard, I believe. There are plenty of these standards, so they're very, very active in forming new standards. And with them, we are working on specific use cases from supply chain visibility to construction sector. So their kind of range of the industries they're tackling is very, very broad. But they're mostly kind of focused on inspections, auditing, and compliance to regulations. And their kind of outreach is very much global. They have 90, I believe, offices across the globe, and they have basically national units in every of these companies. So these are two most recent bigger partnership that we have. And then we have Trace Alliance, which is following this inclusiveness concept. And in Trace Alliance, we would like to gather as many different solution providers that already have their existing clientele, and they are seeking to implement Origin Trail and then offer their new applications or their existing product suite augmented by the value of Origin Trail to their existing clientele. And that's a very, very important unit, Trace Alliance. And then in the scope of Trace Labs, we are also co-developing or developing something by ourselves for specific purposes that we have identified for the companies or for some larger initiatives. Two of them were already mentioned by Tomasz in the beginning, so Smart Agri Hubs and another agricultural initiative here in European Union. And so kind of these are the initiatives and partnerships and kind of case-by-case dealings that we have with service providers that are very, very important for the adoption of the Origin Trail protocol. And in this adoption phase of our mission, when we have already launched the mainnet, we are following a so-called three-pronged approach. We have neutrality, which is being represented by the Origin Trail as an open source solution that can be used by anyone, even the companies that might be competing against themselves, as we perceive it as kind of a bridge between different existing solutions. Then we have Trace Alliance, which is following the principle of inclusiveness. So we will have different existing solution providers also looking to be working together and using the same solution so that they can establish this interoperability, not only at the data level, so semantic interoperability, but also systems interoperability, and in the future also interoperability between different blockchains. And then since it is very, very important for us not only to be talking about the abstract stuff, to be developing something as cool and new and sometimes even difficult to understand, because we're a cutting edge technology with Origin Trail. We are also focusing on very, very heavily on usability. And usability is being kind of championed by the Trace Labs Trace Labs organization. And Trace Labs is basically going very, very deep into the trenches, working with companies. We try to identify the problem, and then we're designing specific solutions that can be easily applied to any situation.
Fantastic. So what does the future look for you guys? Are you mindful of all the competition out there, or is this industry big enough for lots of players, and is everyone going to be using some form of this technology down the future?
Yeah, I mean, the research shows that plenty of companies are going to be using blockchain. Many of companies are still kind of following the wait and see strategy, but it seems that they are also very much inclined to be using the technology once it is proven. It is working provenly. In terms of competition, since the inception of the Origin protocol, it was highly beneficial for us to see that certain companies have done something in quote unquote blockchain space. So we saw a collaboration between Maersk and IBM, and I believe Walmart and IBM, and that quote unquote hype of the last year also created fertile ground for projects like ours. And same goes for today. When we see a blockchain company breaking the ice in certain sector, it's also highly beneficial for us. It's beneficial for us because we're not developing something that would supplement their solutions. We're rather building something that will complement their capabilities. Because again, we're not dealing with transactions only. We're not building our own blockchain. We're building something that will augment the value of the existing offerings. So for us, it's all thumbs up when we see someone being successful.
Fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed that conversation today, guys. Good luck with everything. And thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.